Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game. Need reliable housing for your animals? Animal Housing Solutions in Mayo, Florida builds custom coops, kennels, and shelters that are strong, durable, and designed with your animal's comfort in mind. Whether you need a large-scale kennel or a small custom chicken coop, they've got you covered. Quality craftsmanship, great service, and solutions built to last. That's the Animal Housing Solution promise. Check them out at Animal Housing Solutions on Facebook. Animal Housing Solutions, where your animals come first. Your dogs deserve the very best, and that's exactly what Elite Nutrition Canine Products delivers. Packed with premium ingredients and backed by science, their formulas are designed to boost energy, support joint health, and keep coats shiny and strong. Whether you've got a working dog, a hunting partner, or just a loyal best friend, Elite Nutrition gives them the fuel they need to thrive. Don't settle for ordinary. Choose the nutrition your dog deserves. Find Elite Nutrition Canine Products today and give your dog the Elite Edge. Go to shopeliteglobal.com and use the code TREE10 on your next purchase.
We used to hunt the railroad.
Okay.
We call it the railroad, and it's on the river. And that's where my nephew wanted me to take Jeremy. And when Jeremy Garner says we hunt where it's straight up and down, he said that when he stepped out of my driveway. He's like, man, these are some hills. I don't know. And it was my driveway or yard that I mow. And I was like, Jeremy, you just don't even know. But we was hunting on the river one night, and used to be we'd run the tracks. We'd walk the tracks and then hunt up. And it's steep. I mean, it's real steep. Some
You have
places you
to pull
just
yourself.
you grab onto trees, pull yourself up. It's almost like it's past 90 degrees. But we got permission to hunt from the top down one night, and thought, well, we've got it made because we're just going to be walking down. Well, the dogs end up treeing, and we was trying to get to them, and we was wading in an ivy thicket, probably just a shade over our knees, and you couldn't see nothing. And we was going through there, and uh, I was pushing my way through in front, and I bump into a little pine log. Uh, I couldn't see it, but as soon as my knee hit it, I knew I needed to step over. While I step over, and when I step over, the next thing I know, I'm head over heels, falling off of a cliff.
Oh, geez.
And as I fall, I just reach up and grab anything I can grab, because it's ivy all around me. And I latch on to some ivy. And as I'm hanging there trying to figure out how far the ground is, I look up, and my brother, my dear old twin that's supposed to love me like there's no tomorrow, uh, decides that he's going to lean over and shine a light and take a picture before he sees if I'm okay. So
I need to see this picture.
he didn't take it, I don't think, because I rolled over and seen I was about a foot off the ground, and I just dropped. And then I stood up, and I was like, are you seriously going to take my picture of me dying? And he's like, well, I was just trying to make sure I caught it on camera. But that's the kind of stuff we usually end up when we was together. It was always something like that.
I asked if you was all right.
Yeah, what else are you supposed
That
to
was
do?
after I stood up.
No, I was like, Dwight, the way it was, the ivy was like Dwight was in front of me 1 minute, and then Dwight was gone. And I could see, his light. And he's like, don't take that first step, or don't take that last step. And so I run up there, and I see him down there hanging on a tree. And so I was like, well, wait a minute. And I start getting my phone. And then he starts chewing me out and drops out and hits the ground. But I really didn't know how far he was, but I know that I was hoping he'd be all right.
It was probably like, it seems like it's about probably about 7 or 8 foot's what it was.
Hmm.
But it was it was an experience. But that's kind of some of the stuff he's lowered me down on lead strops to get his dog one night.
That was your
Hey,
dog.
Huh?
That was your dog, old Blue.
No, Nig on the cliff ledge.
Oh,
Yeah, we got an old blue tick I had off a cliff, but the the pictures that Jeremy took of and when he was with us hunting with me, um, I took him to what I thought was some pretty easy country, and they end up down in the holler is like I don't know is somewhere around a half a mile, but we actually got into some little bitty cliffs down in there, and Jeremy's just in awe. He's like, I can't believe you hunt this, but we most of the stuff we hunts it's pretty rough. Um, Coon population ain't much.
hmm.
Seems like this year it's down a lot more than it has been, but it's in McQuarrie County. I think it's 80 something percent government, so
Okay.
we're we're confined to whatever mass crop is there, and
Hmm.
if the acorns goes, the squirrels goes. We've actually seen the migration a few times, and it's not as big as what they used to be years and years ago, but we've actually been through several of them. Usually, it's about every 3 or 4 years when we get a good population of squirrels, and then the next year the acorns will fail, and then our squirrels will leave out, and it takes a couple years to build them back up.
Jeez.
But it's tough hunting. Jeremy swore up and down. He said I would quit hunting if this is what I had to hunt in. He said I just wouldn't do it. He said it's not worth it. And I took him squirrel hunting that day he come down here, and we was in a flat spot, and I don't it wasn't very much of a hill at all. I didn't even think it was a hill, but he come up out of that off that little incline. It wasn't much, and he's like, "Lord, this is terrible." And I was like, "Jeremy, if you don't like this, you're not gonna like coon hunting tonight." And
Well, the only hill down there is the levee.
that's what he said. He told me. He said it said which it's. I've heard people talk about hunting flat ground and said you can't judge distance and you can't you get lost pretty easy if you're from the hills because you ain't no hills for you to recognize and stuff. But it's definitely different down here.
For sure. Well, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Dwight Anderson. I'm the oldest of the twins, better looking and smarter. And my twin,
I'm
you can
Dwayne
introduce.
Anderson, the better looking one, the smarter one.
I can see how this interview is going to go.
Yeah, it'll be a back and forth. I figured it would be more entertaining that way than it would be just one of us talking.
For sure. Well, I think I told
But
you you're the second set of twins I've had on this podcast, and the other set of twins, their last name is Anderson as well.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
you
actually
was
have
telling
them
me
on
about that.
separate podcasts. So
Oh, did you?
yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So how long have you guys been following these tree dogs? I mean, we'll kind of get into how you got into the dogs you got now, but I know that's probably not where you started.
Actually, I was thinking about that the other day. The honestly, most people their first experience hunting with their dad and stuff is going out and still hunting squirrels or something. Honestly, I think our first trip to the woods, he took a dog with us. Um, it he took us squirrel hunting, but it was always with the dog, and you can imagine two knot-headed boys trying to go through the woods with a dog and us pushing over trees and riding them over and making more noise than and distraction for the dog. But that's kind of how we growed up. It was always around dogs most of the time.
We're we're 52 years old, and Dad took us coon hunting for the first time on our eighth birthday. So me and him's been coon hunting for 44 years.
Nice.
And squirrel hunting, probably. Well, I shot out my first animal to a dog when I was 6 years old. An old red bone. I believe it was probably like a half hound, half red bone, half cur, stump tailed dog that Dad had named Old Red. And I was 6 years old and shot out my first possum.
There you go.
But we've had dogs at our house all of our life.
Okay.
Most of them was old grade hounds and stuff like that. Dad would pick up curs every now and then, but most of our when we was younger, it was always for the biggest majority just grade hounds.
Hmm.
Didn't see a whole lot of coons till my grandpa had an old black and tan named Lead, and when he got him, we seen what a coon dog was finally, and that dog was just awesome. And then years later, I got a dog that I named Southfork Nig and trained him. And to me, he's the best coon dog I've ever owned. And then Dwight, uh, a sister to Nig, was a Ruby dog and bred it to Greg Champ, what was his name?
Champ's Champagne.
Yeah, and
It was
that's
a
how we
it was
got
a
Chum Chum.
that was an uncle niece cross. I'd got I guess to back up a little bit before he got Nig. Um, Dad had I told you the other night. I said Dad had a little streak female,
Hmm.
and
Which I think is hilarious.
like I said, it gets better. But he uh he crossed a little red dog over her, and I took a pup and tried to train it. And of course, that was my first squirrel dog. And the only thing I trained him to do was when he smelled a squirrel, he'd come to me looking for me to shoot it out to him. And then I done like everybody else, looked in the full cry and got what everybody was after and went to Carl Smith's and got a little Mountain Jackson dog and trained her. She had just started treeing, and I ended up selling her because she was just at the time I'd quit coon hunting and I was just squirrel hunting. But I thought if I ever want to coon hunt this dog, she just ain't what I want. She's probably about 14, maybe 14 inches and probably 25 pound at 11, 12 months old. And it wasn't nothing for me. So I sold her and it was a brother to Briar Mountain Bud off of Woody Huntsman. And then I hunted him, got him going, and later on got a female off of Woody. And after I got that female, not long after that's when Dwayne picked up Nig, and we kindly after he got Nig trained, I went back to coon hunting because it was completely different than work hunting with hounds. It was fun. You didn't stay out all night waiting on the dogs or wondering what they're doing. And uh, Nig was a really, really nice dog. Just just shut. We'd coon hunted. We'd coon hunted all of our lives, and of course, my brother coon hunted in the summer and everything, and he probably coon hunted more out of season than I ever did. But I coon hunted quite a bit when I lived in Russell County. But after I kindly quit behind hounds, and after I started hunting a little bit with Nig and seen it was completely different. And we was treeing quite a few coons with Nig. I mean, he was you you kindly went with the expectations of you was going to tree something. and it kindly changed our outlook. So we started trying to replicate that, and it was old busher bred dogs, and through the years, with the busher breed dwindling down, we've crossed in some Chris Boone stuff,
Hmm.
but everything we had at that time was what we kindly, after the foundation stock was established. um that was Pat Ford, Dennis Campbell, Emmett Dalton, uh Robert Bob Kiteser, Ned Davis, a lot of them old guys that was in there in the 60s. um Especially Dennis and Ned, they was around there from kindly the start. Emmett was a big red tick man, big time coon hunter, probably hardest coon hunter I knowed of. But in his 70s, he'd hunt 28 nights out of a month. I mean, he
Wow.
hunted hard in
Mhm.
his 70s. He just he knows dogs, but he joined in with the foundation and stuff, and they kindly, after they got that going. But I guess the extra the extra registration and the economy going down and stuff, I guess people decided that they're just going to pick and choose where they stayed and where they kept the registrations from, and that kindly died out. And we always kindly tried to hold as true to what that was as we possibly could, and still
Well,
try to keep the older lines going.
for someone that might not know, I mean, I'm aware of kind of the style of dogs that you guys have, and so why don't you explain what the foundation stock was and how that all came together?
The
What was the criteria there?
the the criteria for the foundation stock when they first started, um, it was basically what people consider a busher dog. It was no streak, no jukebox. And later, I can't remember if it was right off the bat, but it started out streak and jukebox. And I know Torgeson's Theodore was added in as excluding him, anything with him excluding. And then later, after we got in, I think they had a vote, and because at the beginning of it, there was some Blondie 3 in there. Um, and later, there's a couple of the old members. We wasn't even on the board or anything, but we sat in some of the meetings, and they had excluded the Blondie 3. Um, I guess some people wasn't crazy about that line, which there's rumors about all dogs. And if you trace, like Ned Davis, I used to talk to him for hours uh, when I would drive back and forth, and he would just school me on the dogs that was right. I mean, you can go back as far as you want, and every dog's going to
Hmm.
be off somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Um, they had a dog way back there called Old Papers, and that's basically what he was. He was an old set of papers, and they put a dog on him. And I think the story was there might have been a couple dogs attached to that set of old papers. Um, but there's just all kinds of stuff like that, and you can see you can see bits and pieces of how the stories behind some of the dogs. You can see bits and pieces in the way the makeup is on the dog and this and that. And don't get me wrong, all these dogs have, excellent bloodlines, and they do their job. But we've always tried to stay as close to the original BL dogs, the original 200, and try to keep more of that old stuff. But like the Blondie 3, the rumor was with that was it was a lab, but if you any dog hunter, anybody that hunts tree dogs can automatically probably cross that out because a Labrador does not, it's not in them to tree, and to throw something in there like that just goes against everything. It backs you up.
Hmm.
It almost
Yeah.
backs you up to the point that you're losing the tree the tree stock and stuff like that. So when we kind of got backed in a corner on what we could stay in, the first thing, a buddy of mine, Aaron Mills, he had bought a pup off of Chris, and he had talked to Chris about using one of his females, and he at the time Chum Chum was getting seven, I think he's around 6 or 7 years old, and I was trying to really get some pups out of him because we'd tried Nig several times, and he, as good as he just never produced at a consistency to what he was. There was some really good dogs out of him, but to to get that consistency, it just wasn't there. And no matter how much we done it, how hard we hunted them, it just wasn't working. And I was breeding some females to Chum Chum, and Aaron Mills had contacted Chris about using one of his females, and that's kind of where we got to where we started crossing in some Keemer and getting heavier Keemer.
Hmm.
And even Dwayne has a I've got a full Keemer, and then Dwayne's got a real nice little female out of Chris's stock right now that is doing a jam up job.
Hmm. Nice. No, like I said, I just kind of wanted to go over what that foundation stock was. I remember when I first got started in all this Squirrel Dog Central, Squirrel Haters days, um, and I remember, this was like mid 2000s. So I remember
Yeah,
seeing a lot of that, and it never seemed like it caught on with a lot of people. Like there was a small group, but not a lot.
it was a small group, and they eliminated they eliminated they eliminated too much,
Hmm.
and in the process they probably hurt feelings too.
Yeah.
Um, especially but because like I said, I when Pat Ford decided to turn the registrations and all that stuff, quit doing that, I started doing that, and I've still got all the files and everything, and I'd went through a lot of them, and there was several of the Kemer dogs that was registered,
Hmm.
and then they decided that they wasn't going to register them, which you can't. You got to be real careful about stuff like that. You take something in and then you exclude it, then you're going to hurt feelings, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how that went about. And a lot of people just didn't want to pay to register, you know, a whole kennel of dogs, and then we had the DNA restriction on it. Um, if you raised uh, if you raised a litter of pups, the parents had to be DNA'd, so there was proof of that cross. They never actually went to as far as DNA in the puppies, but they wanted a record of the parents on file. That way, if they ever had a dog in question, they could go back to the parents. So it was just the breeding stock, and I've actually done that up to the point of, I guess, the pup that I got now is probably the only thing that I still don't have DNA on, because I kept, even when I crossed into Chris's dogs, I'd pull DNA on them,
Mhm.
That way, everything I had proof of it.
I
But you
think
know,
that honestly is as cheap and easy as it is nowadays. I think that's just the way things are going. And obviously,
well,
registries like NSD have made it mandatory.
it don't. I guess what people don't realize is most people think it tells what is in the dogs, and it don't. It don't break down the breeds that's in the dogs. It just has the mom and dad on file to
Hmm.
where if that pup's ever in question, you can pull DNA on the pup, and if you look at enough of them, you can actually look at them, and you don't have to have nobody to read it. It's either the dad or the mom is going to have the same number as the pup, and it just gives you something that you can look at and say, well, these was bred right from
Hmm.
point X.
They are what they say they are.
Oh yeah. No, and I mean, I got leopard dogs, and Merle hides a lot of stuff, just like Brindle does, and so it's like I could, I've got an ex-bred dog out here, and by all means, that whole litter would have passed for straight leopards. I was honest; he's half plot, but like I said, I can see where people do it. I've seen it in leopards. I've seen it in the mountain cur breed. I've seen it in other breeds, and it's like, why not just be honest about it? Like, it
That's
is what
right.
That's
it is. There's,
that's always been my thing, is just call it what it is and be honest about it. And all those dogs in question that the foundation ruled out, you can look on Facebook, you can look on about anything, and those dogs and dogs from those years and years down the line, they've established some of the top dogs that's out there right now.
mhm.
But it all started off of something that probably wasn't exactly right, but they've done the best they can with what what cards they've been dealt with.
Yeah,
And that's a main thing, is it's trying to, if you're trying to improve the breed, there's no fast track to that. It's a trial and error thing where you just gotta match everything up, and till you get the right thing, and make it try to make it better.
yep. Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well. You said you started off with a streak dog, but then you wanted something else, so you ended up going to Woody Huntsman. But what made you go to Woody, or how did you end up going that route?
Actually, it was Full Cry.
Okay.
Probably get slack over this, but I was reading Full Cry, and Townsend Dunleavy. I mean, he just, everybody, if you anybody that read the old Full Cries knowed him, and he always talked about the old time dogs. And when it come down to it, I thought, if Woody started it, who besides him would have exactly what they was supposed to be when they started. So I started making phone calls, and come to find out, he lived just a little ways from us here, um, and become real good friends with Woody.
Okay.
He actually used to come over and play music with us and everything. But Woody was a fine man. But I figured if him and the people that he he knew that had his dogs, I figured that was probably the best approach. So that's kind of what we tried to stick with as long as we could was, some of the closest stuff to what they had to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And there was because if you, I can't remember when it is, but if you go back and look at real old yearbooks and stuff, the breed standards on the dogs was a heavier dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime, after you get an influx of heavy bred street dogs, you'd go through the yearbook and you'd see a lot of smaller yellow dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they was winning hunts and they was top notch dogs. But somewhere through there they actually, I can't remember when it was, but I know they had lowered the breed standards on the weight like 10 pounds. And later on, I think they picked it back up. I'd have to go back through yearbooks and see, but I just always liked a bigger dog because I was squirrel hunting at the time, but I knew if I was going to coon hunt, and that's about all Dwayne done was coon hunt. I knew if I was going to do that, I just wanted a bigger dog with a bigger mouth and
Mm-hmm.
that could handle it. So that's kind of the way we went. And I mean, he's the one come up with the name Southfork because well, I'll let him tell you how he come up with that.
Back years ago, if you know anything about the cur dogs, years ago, Glen Overstreet had a dog named Northfork Nig.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Dwight and my buddy Chad, we always hunted on the South Fork. But I'd hunt over on Little South Fork and Big South Fork. So I was like, well, if there's a North Fork Nig, and I hunt the South Fork, so I'm gonna call my dog South Fork Nick. So that's how we come up with the South Fork name for our dogs, and that's the way it's been since like 2006 or seven, I guess.
So you guys both use that same kennel name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All of our dogs go under South Fork, whatever like my zip tie dog be South Fork zip tie. But that's just all what we've always named our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chris Boone breeding into the Kemers, that has been a blessing too, and on them dogs of ours. We the breeding a full old busher, like they wasn't that very, I mean, very few that you could even find.
Mm-hmm.
That lived, that was up to our standards to breed to and stuff like that. And then when Dwight got up with Chris Boone and started, Chris was nice enough to we used to let him borrow two females. And it's the breeding has, I mean, we producing dogs now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dwight produces dogs. I worked on the road for so many years. I about got out of it, but I've really got back in it here the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But like I've got my little zip dog. She's come straight from Chris Boone. That's how she got her name. I told him what I wanted. And when I got there, he had a zip tie on her neck. So I was like, well, I'm naming her Zip Tie.
There you go. Sometimes the naming dogs, I just kind of chuckle how they get their names.
Well, it usually takes me days and days to name a dog. And when I seen that dog, I just like, I'm naming that dog Zip Tie. And I believe Dwight was with me when I picked her up. And he looked at me and I said, he's done got a zip tie on her. I said, I'm just going to call her Zip Tie. And Dwight's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because we've actually brought two of them home. Another guy that we know had got a pup off of Chris named Jerry Hubbard. And so we actually brought his pup, that Lacey dog that he hunts. We brought it to our house, and then Jerry come and picked her up the same day that we got back with Zip.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like odd names. I like names that is stand out and just you hardly ever hear my youngest boy named the Chum Chum dog off of a cartoon. And then I've had uh, the Chub dog that I hunt. He was just a really large pup when he was born. And like the dog I hunt now, Bucket, um, I was going up there to check on the puppies. It was one day in February, and when I got up there to check on them, um, he was standing in a bucket of water
Oh, geez.
and near hypothermia, and I took him to the house and blow dried him off, and then brought him home and and my boy held him in a heat pad for a couple hours to get him out of it, and my wife's like, well, I guess you're going to keep him. And he was a yellow dog, buttermilk yellow. And I was like, I don't like a yellow. I want a brindle. But he was, I guess it was just meant for me to keep him. She's like, what are you going to name him? I said, I'm naming him Bucket. And that's how he got his name. But we've, I've always leaned toward the odder names if I can come up with them.
Yep.
But all I've got's cur dogs. Well, that's all I've got. Now Dwayne, he's got a plot, and like I was telling you earlier, he's got somebody. He's talking about getting a Merle leopard.
Off Jason King.
Okay. Yep.
I'd love to have the like a dog like the Halo dog. I've wanted one of them for years, and I seen the picture of that last bunch of pups he had, and I was like, I need one of them.
Yeah. One of them is about 20 minutes from here and he's been out twice at night and he's treated coon both times and he's 6 months old.
He sent me the video of that pup. I've
Yep.
got a video of that one, but yeah, I've got one of the saddle up bred plot dogs.
Okay.
Got it off Darren Allgood. Um, he's wanting to breed it to his Johnny dog. So as soon as she comes in heat, I'm gonna take her up there. She's starting to. We're if we had a lot of coons, but that's the thing. We're very our coon population is just horrible.
Yeah.
But I try to hunt all I can, and I've got her. She's run well. Darren said she'd run in tree when I got her, but it took she was like a cur dog. It took her a long time to get used to me. I had to hunt her like 4 or 5 times before I really ever seen her do anything. And now she's flat turning on.
Good deal.
She's gonna make a nice dog. But I don't mind hunting where I growed up hunting hounds all my life. I don't mind hunting a hound, but I want a hound that'll handle
Yeah.
like a cur dog. Once I got into cur dogs, I've steered away from hounds. I don't hunt them, but I like a plot. That because they're brindle and nobody likes them.
Yeah.
I don't want a walker dog. I don't want a blue tick, but and I know they're good dogs, but that's what everybody wants and has. And I guess me and Dwight's like the oddballs in the county, and my boy Seth, we all three diehard cur dog man.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's such a big difference in the hounds and our cur dogs run, like the hounds. They got cold noses. They can run a track, just like a hound.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the type of cur dogs we like. I don't want no hot nose cur dog because around here you take a cold track or you're probably not going to run a hot coon. I mean, because dogs got to take what they can get down here. But if I do hunt a hound, which it's this plot here is the first one I've honed, and probably over 10 years. I had another plot male pup a long time ago. I just had bought one, and he trained up real nice, and I ended up and sold him. But he was a very easy starting dog, and he was out of the Rough Ridge stock of dogs off
Yeah.
Alan Moses
Hmm.
owned him, but or that's who I got him from. But
Yeah.
um,
I was telling you that expert dog I got, his sire come has some of his like a pretty boy poacher grandson. So a little familiar with that
yeah,
line of dogs.
yeah, I really like the plots. I guess because they're brindle,
Hmm.
and I know you way back there the plot they used to call the plot curs.
Yep.
They said Bond would shoot you if he called his dogs a hound, and I think a lot of the old stock dogs way back then, you can't tell me they didn't have plot.
Yeah.
I th- but I and so far they're a little more harder headed than a cur dog,
Hmm.
but they still handle good.
Yeah.
But like the cur dogs, like me and Dwight used to, I mean, they mind better than the kids do. You tell them, come here, they're there. You don't have to lead them out when you shot something out to them. When you're done with it, you just tell them to come on and they leave.
Hmm. That's my kind of dog. That's what I like about a cur dog. I like a dog that handles.
Yeah.
It's smart.
Yeah. Got to have some brains to
Hmm. So how big are your dogs? Since you said you don't like a little small dog.
them. That Chub dog's probably about 70, 75 pounds.
Oh wow.
He's a he's a big dog. When I raised him or in the litter, he honestly looked like he was 2 weeks older than the rest of the pups. Um, he come out a dirty white girl in Chum Chum, and I raised him up, trained him, and of course, I told you I DNA'd everything I had, so I pulled DNA on the dirty white girl and and sent her back to Chris. And a few years ago, he called me one day and he said, "Didn't you DNA?" Said, "Where do you do your DNA?" And I told him and stuff, and he said, "I said, what's going on?" He said, "Man, I've got a pup out of dirty white girl." And he said, I just don't know about it." And I said, "Well, I DNA'd her." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Man, there's one pup in there that's just abnormally larger than the rest of them." And I just laughed and I said, "Chris, do you not remember about the Chubb dog I got?" I said, "He was the exact same way." And it's his Ranger dog that he's got now, but he's built a lot like Chubb, just a really big frame dog and heavy, but big mouth on him and everything. So um the rest Bucket's probably like Bucket's between 60, 65 pounds, but our females are run from probably on the low end 50, um, probably around 45 to 50 pounds on the low end. We've got but we just like a bigger dog. It seems like you get a obviously with the bigger dog you're going to get a bigger mouth, and you want distance out of them when you're coon hunting. We I try to tell everybody I've always wanted I always try to breed for a coon dog that can tree a squirrel, not a squirrel dog that might be able to tree a coon.
Hmm.
So we've always tried to lean toward the night hunting more than anything. And you can always take them out and kill a squirrel, but they may not be great squirrel dogs. But every now and then we do get one occasionally that we don't ever coon hunt, and they lock in and do pretty good on squirrels. But for the most part, we try to lean toward a coon hunting style dogs more than anything.
Hmm.
But it's been well, like I said, we've been in it with a foundation, the whole 9 yards. Started in I guess I started in 2002's when I bought the dog off Carl,
Okay.
and in 2003's when I got the dog off of Woody.
Hmm.
And we've been in been in the old dogs ever since then, pretty much.
Now, there's not a whole lot of, like you've even kind of alluded to, there's not a whole lot of that blood left around. A lot of people kind of stop breeding that. Why do you think that is?
A lot of it is just people like when we got into foundation stock, those guys was they just most of them just didn't want to produce pups. They didn't trust nobody with them. Um, they was real reluctant on just letting anybody have them.
Hmm.
So, and a lot of times they only, like the old timers, they only bred when they needed something. And, over the course of the years, because um, Dennis's lines went back to the old Catoosa blood. And then later on, he crossed into a lot of Peanut Beatty stuff, which, Pat Ford, him and Peanut and Pat were partners in on a lot of dogs for years. But the Beatty dogs and stuff like that, people just didn't continue. It's like everything else. They've crossed once you cross something in, there's really no way of getting it out.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. Emmett Dalton probably told me one of the best scenarios for dogs in the bloodlines and what can show up. He used to when he raised red ticks. He is telling me one day that he occasionally he would have a long-haired setter-looking dog, red setter-looking dog, in his litters, and he got to researching it, and 7 generations back on those papers, he found a dog that had a quarter shot of setter in it, and every now and then he would have a dog that had that long setter hair. He said they always made tree dogs, made real good coon dogs, but said they just had, a longer hair. Actually, the other day he was telling me his uh, buddy had one, and he didn't like the long hair, so he back years ago they wasn't many places to get a dog groomed, and
Hmm.
he took it to a poodle shop. And when it come out of there, it had a pink bow on its head. So he said, and they sheared it like a poodle instead of just shearing it off. They actually sheared it like a poodle and left the little ball on the tail and fluff on the ears and stuff. And he took it home and shaved it back down. And but said they used to tease him about it having a pink bow on its head when it come out of the poodle shop. But that's stuff that once it's in there, it can always show up somewhere. So we've tried to maintain as close to what we got and keep it that way
Yeah.
and be real selective on what we do pass on and breed to and stuff like that. And it's always geared toward a coon style dog.
Hmm. Now, down in your country, do you guys have any bears around you?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's bears in the actually I've back several years ago, I run a deer camera right across from my house, and I got sow and cubs on camera. But there's just on the main road that we live on. There's always, and of course, I've done that for 5 years with Fish and Wildlife. I was a bear tech,
Hmm.
um, so I kind of know where most of the problem bears was at that time. So, um, but yeah, there's a lot of them. You can't. I don't know what the regulations is on them anymore. As far as running them with dogs, back when I was working with them, you couldn't hear because the Forest Service at the time, the Forest Service wouldn't let you hunt on them, and then the Park Service wouldn't let you run them. Um, Over in Eastern Kentucky, they was running them, but we ain't.
Okay. I knew somewhere in
We ain't
Kentucky there was a season.
we have a season here, but it's not dogs. It's just bow and gun. Now, little farther east, they do have a running season.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
where the park, I don't know if the park has opened anything up in the last couple of years or not, but um, they get dispersed out pretty quick. They're basically like a big coon.
Mhm.
Most people ain't crazy about them.
I just obviously, if you don't have a season, then it means you guys aren't purposely targeting them. That was my going to be my question. Is you ever try to run your dogs on bear? But
We ain't. I That's one of them things where when you walk, I know some people around here have treed some of the night, and it's probably not it's probably not the perfect scenario to walk into a tree and see a bear up there because that's something that you never expect, and when you do see it, it's probably makes you a little leery about getting out of there and getting your dog in fully intact still.
I've never treed one, but I've always wanted to, but I'd probably be scared to death if I did.
well,
Because I wouldn't be expecting it. I'd be expecting to see a coon or possum than see a big old bear up there.
granted, I've never walked into one at night, but it's one heck of an adrenaline rush.
Oh, I can
I'd
imagine.
I'd I'd like to do it. I'd definitely like to do it. That's definitely something if I was going to do it, I'd prefer to do it with dogs for sure. But they've moved elk and everything in here, so it's a
Okay,
little bit of everything here.
nice. Well, we need a couple more stories. I know you guys got a couple stories.
You got one, Dwayne?
I can't. I'm blank right now. Got stage fright, I guess. I know a bunch,
I
but
I tell you,
I can't
I
tell
tell
them.
you one probably the best. Tell him the best night hunting down here we ever had. Um, we was on a management area and we set out right at daylight or dark. I always tried to go as close to dark as I could, and we struck out, and sent the dogs down, and we was going down through there, and at the time, my dog, it was that Chum Chum dog and Niggs what we had, and he had just started. I just started him that season coon hunting because the year before I'd squirrel hunted him, and that's all what I was going to do with him. But our squirrels left out, so the only option was coon hunting him. So I started coon hunting him, and we was going down this road, heading them in toward the management area, and we was going down through there, and him and Nig hunted completely different. But he bounces over to the side and goes to treeing, and Dwayne, he's like, well, you can go to him. I ain't going. He
He
said,
had been treeing several squirrels, and we was going through there, and Chum Chum just bounced up the hill and starts treeing, and I was like, I ain't going. I said, I ain't. I'll just wait here on you. Well, Dwight got leaves. A few minutes later, I hear the gunfire, and I start running, trying to get to him, and he's like, "Should have come, killed a coon." And then he actually started doing real good from then. But he that squirrel hunting style that he had, he was unbelievable. He could walk hunt, road hunt. Dwight started cast hunting him. Now that's all Dwight is. He's like a hound hunter with a cur. He just pulls up and drops the tailgate. And my dogs, I have to walk mine everywhere. My little zip dog, she hunts so great of the day, but it's like she don't want to hunt that great of the night. But if she hits one or she smells one, she'll tree every coon in the woods. But you might have to walk a lot farther than what Dwight has to. But I've killed, knocked out several coons to her this year, and she's really starting to pick it up. She's, I think, 2.5, going on 2.5, but she
but after we after we shot that one out, or I shot that one out, I tossed it down the road, and I told him, I said, well, skin this one. And his dog had already dropped down, dropped off the road and hit a coon, and we was trying to get to him because he was, it sounded treed. We thought he was treed, and every now and then he'd shut up. So we start in there, and when we get in there, he's below the cliff. Well, we have to find our way through a gap and get down under the gap. Well, when we get down under there, we're walking through there, and he's saying, "Well, he's right here." And he was on that ledge I told you about. Well, we end up having to come in from the top, and Dwayne lets me down on a lead drop, and I hook to him and pulls him up, and he's on a ledge about 4 foot off of the main ledge, but the ledge he's standing on is probably about 6 or 8 foot wide and only about 3 foot deep. He's just running back and forth barking. The coon had went down that ledge and then dropped on down below him. Well, while we're getting Nig out, Chum Chum goes to treeing down in the holler. And when we get Nig out and go down there, he's treed up a hemlock. Well, he we knocked that one out. So we start finally trying to make our way back out, and we're walking through a big, almost like a growed up clear cut. It's a lot of little timber, but some big trees in there. And it was me and Dwayne and his boy, his oldest boy, and we get up through there, and we decide to take a break. And I lean up against a white oak and prop my foot on it. Well, while I'm standing there, Nig walks over and rears up on that tree and goes to treeing. And I just kindly took my foot and pushed him away. And I said, "What are you doing? Get down." Well, he comes right back to that tree and goes to treeing again. So everybody backs off, and we go to shining. And there's a coon right where I was standing. We knock that one out. So that made three. And down here, that's just kindly unheard of. And when we'd first come in, there was a little 4 point off to the side of the road that just hung around, and it was almost like it was following us at first. But when we get back to the truck, it's going on. I think it's going on about 3 o'clock in the morning, because we had to work around getting under that cliff and all of that. Well, we get up there within sight of the truck, and both dogs take off just as hard as they can go, both opening, just barking every breath, straight over the hill down in the holler. First thing we think of is that deer's run out in front of them. They took off. Well, directly Nig goes to treeing, and then Chum Chum falls in with him. And we get down there and walk over there and drive around and actually walk down in there. When we get down in there, there they are treed. While they're treeing, we knock that coon out and skin it real fast. And Dwayne leashes his dog because I guess he's tired and wanting to go. And I
I
never
was
leash mine. It
getting
was,
cramps going down the hill in both legs. I
but
couldn't hardly walk.
he leashes his dog, and I just turn Chum Chum loose, and we start out of there. And Chum Chum goes about 50 yards down the dry creek bed and turns up just another little side creek, and he's treed within just a thought. Dwayne said, "I knowed you should have tied him up." Said, "We was tied at the truck." Said, "This made us tied," and said, "Now you're one ahead of me." So we ended up treeing 5 singles that night and got home about 5 o'clock. But that's been the best night we've had down here. And anymore, it takes us, most of the time it'll take you a month or so to get 5 coons, seems like. But we
Imagine if
had
you guys
five
lived
singles.
somewhere where there actually were raccoons,
It would be fun to even hunt in something like that. We used to, when we done the foundation stock, we used to go up there a lot and have hunts. And that's where we wanted to have the hunts, was up there, because it was game heaven to us. And because we'd get up there, I remember going on a cast with Dennis, and I had a young dog, and he had worked and worked and worked on this squirrel, and finally he was young and wasn't hardly confident in himself, but he reared up on this tree and then backed out. When we got done, we walked down through there and asked Dennis. I said, "Well, let's check that tree." And when we checked it, there's a squirrel there, and he said you probably need to have that dog to go on. He said on stuff like that, and I said, Dennis, I said we can't do that. I said down home, I said that may be the only track that is on the ground. I said so we don't have the option to move them onto a hotter track, but we used to love going to Indiana, have them foundation stock hunts.
I was on a big cast up there one night and took Nig and drawed out with Dennis. And I swear, in that 2 hours, we seen like Nig treed like 4 or 5 coons. He's and just treeing like 15, 20 yards out of the cornfield.
Yep.
I told him, I said, Lord, we've treed more coons than we usually do treeing squirrels down home. And I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe it. It was just so awesome to just pop coons up.
Mm-hmm. No, sounds like a good time, that's for sure. But I really appreciate you guys coming on. I've had a really
No
enjoyed
problem.
this, and we're gonna have to make sure we do this again.
You just holler at us.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.